Hi, today we're gonna be presenting repetition and redundancy, and our team is composed by Luisa Tovar and me, Ivana Sánchez. Repetition involves intentionally using a word or phrase for effect, two or more times in a speech or written work. This device should be used in a conscious way. For it to be noticeable, we have to use it on a close proximity of the words or phrases that are being using on the academic writing. And repeating the same words or phrases may give clarity to the ideas or make it even memorable for the readers. Over here, we have an example of the iconic phrase that Shakespeare wrote on Hamlet, which is to be or not to be. The first type of repetition is isocolon. Usually, we can use it or find it on academic and business writing. Some of the important points are the momentum, rhythm, and emphasis. To involve this repetition, we use grammatical structures like phrases or clauses. And for example, in the grammatical structures, we can find it as the same number of words, like in the example. Pay any price, bear any burden. The word in the middle is the one that it's repeating. The second type of repetition is anaphora. This type of repetition, we're gonna find it at the beginning of a successive phrase, clause, or sentence. This usually is used to have a dramatic effect in our speech or writing. As you can see in the example, it's only used in the beginning of each phrase. And in this instance, the use of contrasting words followed by the repeated elements strengthens the passage and creates a creative type of intensity. And last type of repetition is epistrophe. This repetition, we're gonna find it at the end of the phrase or clause. And it gives a rhetorical function as to provide a dramatic or poetic emphasis. In this case, we have the example of Abraham Lincoln's speech where he repeats the phrase, the people. And sometimes it's quicker to avoid this type of repetition and write it in a simplified form. Some tips to avoid repetition. First, be aware of some of the places in your writing. Check by reading out loud and searching. Sometimes we have to really understand if it makes sense, not just repeating a word for adding more information.
Okay, now we're going to talk about redundancy, which is the next topic. And yeah, the next slide. All right, so redundancy is when we use two words together that means the same thing, especially words or phrases in the same sentence. That is when we put together two words that have the same meaning. Many writers are guilty of violating this rule at times, especially in daily conversations, or probably you find in songs, in books, or perhaps in essays. This could depend on the context. For example, we have two pictures that I can explain. The first one is, I was invited to the annual anniversary party. So we know the annual and anniversary are the same. So it's kind of unnecessary to put annual. And this one, the next one is forever and ever, which we have heard it in perhaps novels, books, and yeah. And this one is also the same thing. And it's not bad, but it's kind of unnecessary. So that are two examples of redundancy. So the next one, please. So we have common redundancies. That here are some examples that we can find on books, on our everyday lives. For example, we have tall in height and tall. So tall in height is incorrect because tall in height are the same, and we can just put one of them, and that will show the clear meaning of the main idea. So we can just leave it by tall, just tall, and it will be correct. Next will be the final conclusion was to close the bakery. And the right way to use it is just conclusion. It's just the same. Conclusion is another synonym. It's kind of it's a synonym of final, because putting both of them in the one sentence could be like annoying for some readers, and just conclusion gives the main idea of what you're trying to explain. Is the end. And then we have the companies merged together last year, and the right way is to use just merge, because merging together are the same thing, and we can just leave it by just merged. And then we have biography of his or her life and biography. So biography gives the general meaning that you're explaining, that is the story of someone's life. So it's kind of unnecessary to put of his and her life, because we are sending this a story of someone. The next one, please. All right. Why should we avoid redundancy while writing? The three main reasons why. It could be like it tends to interrupt the flow of the prose, causing the reader to become distracted and annoying. As I was telling you, the reader can get like annoyed when reading some examples of redundancy. It often contradicts what you're trying to explain in your writing, so it could have a misunderstanding of the idea that you're trying to project in your writing. The reader might get the wrong message. So yeah, we need to be careful. And last but not least, it suggests an amateur quality of your writing, which tends to leave a bad taste in your reader's mouth. An amateur quality is when it's kind of inexperienced, and it's kind of it suggests that you don't know how to write properly in an essay or in general. So yeah, we need to be careful with that. And last but not least, we have the three types of redundancy. First one is pleonasm, which is when we use more words that are necessary to convey the meaning. One example would be an anonymous stranger stole my umbrella. It's kind of unnecessary to use anonymous. The second one is redundant abbreviation. This happens when the last character is said twice. That is, once as part of the abbreviation and then the word itself. The one example that I could tell you about this, it would be, we need to find an ATM machine to make money out. The word in red is the one that is unnecessary. And intensifier, they necessarily contribute to the phrase or the sentence that someone is writing, to avoid to use it anyways. And one example would be, the meeting this morning was extremely important. The word in red is an adverb. The words in red that are in any examples here, they are unnecessary. So yeah, that's it.
To end up the presentation, sometimes students are scared that if they remove unnecessary details or information from their work, at the end it will be too short or they will not get into the length that it's required. However, there is no use of keeping anything that is unnecessary or makes unclear what you are trying to express. You have to keep your writing simple, precise, and concise unless you are asked to write lengthy details. And use details and repetition only when it will help the readers better understand the idea